Hello everyone, I'm Dead Knight and this is In It to Win It. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel and all the videos. Check out everything for this set and this season in Standard and Wild. Today we are going to talk about Season 92 in Standard. This is the first Standard season with the new Deadmines mini set release. So this shook up the meta quite a bit and we have a lot of new decks and we have some older decks that are just a little bit better and are pushed over the edge. Today I'm going to be talking about the deck that I hit my legend run with in Season 92, which is Taunt Druid. So Taunt Druid is a very popular deck and it only got better with the advent of the Deadmines, with 2 new cards standing out. So we'll get into that in a second, but first, since I haven't made any videos about Taunt Druid, I just want to go over the core of the deck really quick. There's 2 main minions that are going to be the core of the deck. The first one is going to be from the Barons, which is the Razormane Battleguard. So this guy is a 2/3 for 2, and the first taunt minion you play each turn costs 2 mana less. So this is the heart and soul of the deck, and almost by itself was good enough to make the archetype work in the Barons. Pretty much what happens is on turn 1 with the coin, or on turn 2 you play this guy and you play a taunt to protect it, and then even if your opponent can get rid of the taunt with tempo, they won't be able to get rid of the Battleguard, and the next turn you play a free taunt and then another taunt, and at that point there's just no way that they can ever catch up and get rid of the Battleguard without targeted removal, and then you snowball from there. So I had called this the best Druid card in the Barons. I'd say that Celestial Alignment probably ended up being the best overall, but this deck and its win rate and its potential is the reason why Battleguard was my #1 pick there. And the fact that it is, I would say, the dominant minion-based deck in Standard right now, I think showcases its power. But its power was amplified manyfold by what I said was the best card in the Stormwind set for Druid, which is Oracle of Elune. This 2/4 for 3 that whenever you play a minion that costs 2 or less, it gets copied. So obviously copying minions is crazy, it's just free value, and there's no limit to this guy, unlike Razormane Battleguard. And if something is reduced in its cost by Razormane Battleguard, then it still gets copied by Oracle of Elune. So you get some absolutely bonkers plays in the late game, or if you get really lucky in the early game, by reducing some 5 mana taunt minions that are really strong. Most importantly in the form of Greybough, which came out in Dark Moon and didn't really shine until Oracle of Elune came out. But once it did, these guys together, this triple combo is pretty much a game ender. 2 Greyboughs on the board at the same time means that whenever you kill one, Death Rattle will go on to another minion, and sometimes even the other Greybough, and then when you kill that Greybough, then the first one respawns, and then there's just bows on bows on bows all over the place. You just can't get rid of them. So any deck that's trying to win with minions will never be able to get through this wall. I've had a couple wins against some of these Zoolock decks that are coming out now where Greybough hit the table and they just was no way to get rid of that and all the other minions. The deck's putting out too much pressure. They can't kill you and all the minions and the Greyboughs, and Greybough just pretty much wins itself the game. The other good one is Teacher's Pet, which also is good standalone, but if you copy it with Oracle of Elune and Razormane Battleguard, it's usually just scooping. There's not much that can be done. But in Deadmines, this deck got 2 key upgrades, which is crazy because this deck already had the highest win rate in Standard according to HS Replay for several months. So why this deck needed upgrades and some other decks that needed upgrades badly didn't get any, it makes no sense to me. But their loss is our gain, so we have a lot of fun using 2 new cards. The first is Druid of the Reef. This is a card where the value on this is just, defies understanding how they would print this card in this meta. It is a 1/1 for 1, and then when you play it, you choose it to either become a 3/1 rush or a 1/3 taunt. So, you know, 1/3 taunt for one, you know, Warlock's been doing that for a while, but in this Druid deck, that's really good because that gets copied with Oracle of Elune. So you can start putting up that crazy protective wall around the Oracle really early with this 1 mana 1/3 taunt, or with Oracle, you play a 3/1 rush that copies itself and you kill 2 minions for 1 mana while you're going off on your crazy board swing turn. So that's insanity. And anyway, by itself, it's just a great 1-drop at the beginning of the game. It shuts down Pirate Warrior hard because first turn Pirate Warrior is playing the quest line, and then the next turn the absolute best they could come up with is a 2/3, but usually what they're doing is playing a 2/2 either in the form of Bloodsail Deckhand or Harbor Scamp. So if you play this guy out as a 1/3 taunt and then you buff it with Adorable Infestation on the next turn, that just destroys Pirate Warrior's early board, and they pretty much have no way to get it back without an absolutely perfectly timed Rancor. And even that won't always get you there if you can get your board buffed up. So this is a great addition, really smooths out the beginning plays of this deck. The next one is JerryRig Carpenter. So now we finally have pirates for Druid. Doesn't really matter the minion type, but what it does is it draws you a choose one spell and then destroys it and splits it into both of the chooses. So it will tutor for your choose one, and then you get to use both of those. There's only one choose one that we play in this deck, which is Sow the Soil, which is for 1 mana, either gets you a 2/2 minion or gives all your minions 1 attack. So both of those are great options in this deck where you're trying to get early game board presence and you're trying to put lots of threat and buff a wide board. So being able to use both of those and tutor for it is just a superb ability, really welcome in this deck. So we definitely made room for that. And it turns out that being able to play both those cards is just excellent. So, you know, most games you're ending up playing the Carpenter and playing both copies of the split. You know, not every kind of split you could think about doing that with, but in this one you definitely do. It's great, and it gives the deck much needed card draw too. So we ended up cutting what I thought was the weakest card in this deck from the beginning, which was Vibrant Squirrel, the 2/1 for 1 that death rattle to shuffle a bunch of 2/1 tokens in your deck that spawn when you draw them. You know, I talked about this in a previous video, why I didn't think this card was that good, and ultimately it doesn't make the cut anymore. And with that, you have a couple other changes. So the main one that I want to talk about is the 4 slot. So there's not that many cards that Druid is going to run in this deck at 4. You pretty much have 2 choices. You can either run Kodo Mount, which gives a minion +4/+2 and rush, and then death rattles to create a 4/2 rush. So this is a really great card. I used to run it in this deck, and I ended up cutting it for Park Panther, the 4/4 for 4 rush that after it attacks, it gives your hero 3 attack. So these are very similar, and they're going to fill the same role. But Kodo Mount, in my opinion, used to be better in a spell-heavy meta, because you could keep that buff, or basically you could do 4 attack on a minion that survived and then go to the face with it to get extra pressure. So if they left even a 1/1 token alive, then they were getting punished to the face. Park Panther can't go to the face because he doesn't buff a minion. But in a minion heavy meta like one we're in now, Park Panther is slightly better because the extra health usually means it's going to survive. You're still getting rid of 2 minions with 1 card, but this one gives you better board presence. It gives you more options. It lets you go a little wider, and being able to stick to the board means that their counterplay is going to have to be around Park Panther instead of just trying to refill the board. So Park Panther is, I think, better now than it was back when Questline Warlock and Questline Mage were the only decks we were seeing. And now that there's a little more range and there's a lot more board presence, Park Panther is going to be a little better. So that's kind of the logic behind some of these cards and changes. And really, the standout besides the board filling combo is obviously Arbor Up. It's been a must-have for Druid ever since it was printed. But you've got all these cards coming in to put minions on the board. even small minions, like ones that are created with adorable infestation tokens. So every single minion, even a 1/1, is a threat because Arbor Up can take your wide board and make it lethal instantly. And then on top of that, this deck can easily refill its hand now. There's a couple ways that it can do that. Firstly is the vastly underrated Peasant, which I don't know why isn't an auto-include in every aggro deck. It is for me, but I don't see it played very much except in this deck. Peasant is crazy. 2/1 for 1 is, aggressive stat line. Even though it's weak, every turn it draws you a card, which means that if you play this guy on turn 1, your opponent is usually doing something not fun for them to try to kill it immediately, like coin hero power, or they'll use some sort of removal spell that they would have rather saved, and they use it on this guy instead. And then obviously Oracle of Elune copies it, which again creates so many must-kill threats on the board at the same time that you're usually going to either draw a card or copy some more minions. Oftentimes, if I'm playing against this deck, depending on how many cards are in their hand, if their hand's pretty low, I'll kill the Peasants and leave the Oracle alive so that they can't just restock their whole hand. The next way that they refill their hand is with Composting. For 2 mana, it puts Death Rattle for all your minions to draw a card. Usually, if you can get this off on turn 3 or 4 with just 2 or 3 minions on the board, you're probably going to win. Just being able to refresh your hand that quickly. Your opponents have to remove the minions because of Arbor Up, and then it helps you draw into the crazy bonkers Oracle of Elune, Battleguard, Taunt Minion combo, and then you just refill the board again, and then you can sit back and collect cards in your hand and just smash their faces. So Composting, it's just a huge card. People can't play around it. They have to kill the minions. You have to draw your cards, and it's just floods of cards and minions, and it really makes the deck fun to play. So this deck worked really well for me. Again, really high win rate consistently. Now there's an upcoming nerf to Razormane Battleguard to make it from a 2/3 to a 2/2. This does not really affect the power level of the deck so much as it affects how you play the deck. So right now you can just fire off a Razormane Battleguard early and play a Taunt Minion, and there's only a couple ways that they can remove it. And even if they do, they still have to deal with that Taunt Minion. When it's a 2/2, there's going to be some more tempo plays that people can do to remove it. They're going to be able to life tap and play the new Pirate that'll deal 2 damage to it. It'll be easier to remove it with Prize Plunderer. There's going to be just a lot more options, so you can't just mindlessly drop this guy and a Taunt Minion anymore. You have to think about it a little bit. So it's going to increase the skill ratio for this deck, but it's not going to really decrease the overall lethality. It's just going to mean, it definitely is going to hurt, but this is still going to be a good deck even after the nerf. So I wouldn't give it up just yet, even after the nerf. Have fun with it, abuse it, just see what all the greatness is of this deck, and let me know what you think. Please leave some respectful comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and tune in next time.